So I'm Niraj from Grexit. Oddly named, some of you might say, but we named Grexit before some Citigroup guy decided to use the term for a financial economic phenomenon that will probably never happen. We are trying to solve a fairly important problem with email, and that is that email inboxes are extremely opaque. So most of us at work have tons of useful content stuck inside our email inboxes, which can be useful to our peers, but they have absolutely no idea that it's sitting inside the inbox of someone who is sitting beside me. So to think of a typical scenario, if I work in a 500 people company, a lot of 2, 3, 4 people groups would be having email conversations, which can be relevant to people who are not a part of that conversation, right? So it might be a support query which has been resolved by a support team, or a technical question that has been discussed by the development team, and that can be relevant to a lot of people who are not a part of the conversation. So how does someone who joins the company maybe 6 months down the line get to know that similar things have been discussed in the company in the past over email, which might have been relevant to him, right? So basically, there's a lot of knowledge that gets stuck inside email inboxes, gets trapped there and dies there. What we are trying to do with our tool is that we are trying to give companies some very simple ways to get useful information out of their inboxes and into a shared area. So basically, we are enabling companies to build knowledge bases out of their email conversations. So this is how it works. So Grexit essentially is a knowledge base that is built out of email conversations, and basically we allow people in the company to add conversations to the repository very easily. So this currently works with Google Apps. So suppose I have this conversation in my inbox, which is a conversation between me and a client of ours, and I happen to think that this is an important conversation and might be useful to my team later in the future. So I just see this send to Grexit button on my email interface. I press this. Okay. So I see this. I press this button. I can attach a set of tags to this. Create a new tag and submit this conversation to Grexit. So essentially what this does is immediately this conversation along with all the emails that were a part of this conversation will be submitted to the shared email repository for my company. This is how the repository looks like. So this looks very similar to someone's inbox, but the fundamental difference here is that these conversations are not my private conversations. So these are conversations that have been contributed to the repository by everyone in my company. I can search it just like I can search my private inbox. I can organize it using tags. So these are similar to labels in Gmail, but these are essentially tags which anyone in my company can attach to a conversation inside the repository. One more important thing is that once I've added this conversation to the repository, any follow-up emails that I might have with Giovanni basically get added to the repository automatically. So Grexit keeps tracks of what has been added to the repository and keeps an updated version at all times. The next important thing is access controls. So of course, if you think of a company of 500 people, not everything that has been shared should be available to everybody in the company, right? So access controls are very important. So you can have access controls in Grexit through labels. So I can go to the admin panel, I can go to the tags, and I can say that I want to define an access control for, say, customer. And I can define which people should have access to anything that has the tag customers. So as soon as I add a conversation to Grexit with the tag customers, that access control automatically gets applied. Searching Grexit is integrated with Gmail search, so I can search for, say, Grexit, and
excuse me, there's a chill.
So I can search for Grexit, and I see my Gmail results here, but right beside that, you can see results from Grexit too. So searching the public repository is absolutely integrated with how you search your private inbox. We have a few more very useful features. So pressing the send to Grexit button is not the only way of contributing conversations to the repository. You can build rules inside Grexit to say whenever someone in my company attaches a specific label to a conversation, grab that automatically. So one example rule is that I can have a label, I can have a rule in Grexit that says whenever my finance guy or my accounts guy attaches a label called invoice to an email conversation, automatically grab that and archive that inside Grexit and share it with my finance team. So it can be completely automated. Of course, the last feature that we recently released is shared labels. So this is really cool. So what shared labels lets you do is that I can just drop a label from here to a conversation in Grexit, in my email, to share it with people in my team. So as soon as I can say that this label called accounting I want to share with 3 other people in my company, and as soon as I drop that label on a conversation in my private inbox, that conversation gets replicated inside inboxes of everyone that I've shared that label with. So basically, it is a very convenient way of sharing email conversations that goes beyond simply CCing and forwarding. CCing and forwarding is the root of a lot of evil that we face with email. We can take that offline, but that's about it. So we are on Google Apps right now. We got out of beta in the mid of Feb. We have around 25 customers from various domains, shipping, construction, even a major political party. And we are launching for for Microsoft Exchange and Office 365 in around 15 days.
Great, thank you. Questions for Grexit?
Sure. There was this company called CC Loop, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys,
Yeah.
how are you different from CC Loop?
Very different. So CC, you again get into the CC trap, right? That's not good. So we are really faithful to how email should work, and and basically preserving the integrity of this communication, channel, I would say. So you can continue to work just like you work in your private inbox and still have Grexit file and archive everything cleanly. So for instance, you might decide after having 5 emails with someone that you might want to archive this, right? After 5 emails, if you add a CC address, so if you decide to use CC loop after having 5 emails in a conversation, you are going to get a very messy copy of that conversation in the repository. You might miss attachments, you will miss the format of the conversation. Whereas with us, we'll basically use IMAP to pull in the exact same conversation with attachments and file a very faithful copy of that conversation. There are many other instances. I just named one.
But what about the larger companies that do behind the firewall social integration like Jive and Lithium and Get Satisfaction that are always converging on the same general point of collaboration? Are you going to run into?
I mean, the jury's out. So yeah. So I think email is going to stick around. So this is what I feel. So places where workflows are very loose, right? You do not need a lot of structure on how work is done. Email is excellent. Email is very asynchronous. Email does not disrupt people's workflows. So I think email is really going to stick around in places where you do not need very structured, defined workflows, right? So I think Jive, etc. have their own place under the sun, but email is going to stick around for a lot of stuff. I can give instances.
Hi. Looks nice. My impression, right or wrong, is you seem to offer a subset of the functionality available in Google Wave, which was open sourced a while back.
Yeah.
What features do you offer that would motivate people to use your product instead of Google Wave?
What I would say is that probably we are solving 80% of people's problems with a much simpler solution. So I think there is a subset of users out there who just want a simple add-on on top of their email, without having to change their behavior too much, which is going to get 80% of the job done for them. And I think that's a fairly large market. That's not a trivial size.
Very good.
Okay.
So it seems like anybody can add a tag. Do you have some way of curating the tags, or just so that the number of tags doesn't just explode?
Okay. So the question is that tag creation is completely democratic. Anyone can add a tag, and is it going to explode? Absolutely right. It's actually going to explode, and it's exploding for some of our customers. So we tried putting in admin controls, but that was not that did not gain too many favors. So what we are doing right now is so just like Google Apps, Google Apps has this system of super admins, and then normal users. So you are building a hierarchical admin system where some people might have the privilege to add tags and some people might not have. And to address the explosion problem, we have recently built nested tags. So you can nest a tag under a tag to keep the explosion problem under control. Yeah.
So given a piece of email, your system can do what to decide where it should go? It can decide that it's part of an existing thread, or it could trigger on one of the rules. Are there any other ways?
Can you just repeat the question? I'm not ready.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so given a piece of email coming in, it could either belong to one of your threads, or you could maybe trigger a rule on it. What other ways do you have to decide where it belongs?
Trigger a rule, you said, right? Trigger a rule in my email account, right?
Okay, is that the
So,
other way?
so-
Or do you have other ways too?
Yeah, so we basically see whether it is a part of a conversation that is already in Grexit. So we try to replicate Gmail's email conversation threading behavior, and we see whether it fits into an existing conversation which is a part of Grexit. If it does fit, we'll pull that in. If it does not fit, we leave it inside.
When you look at your project as a new business, what are the next steps for you guys? What are the next challenges for you guys?
So as a technical platform, it's very So already we are handling more than 25,000 emails every day, and it's not distributed. It sometimes within an hour we'll have to handle 5,000. Sometimes it can be very sparse. So technically it's a huge problem. Feature-wise, there is a lot to be done. So tons of stuff like email is email is prime property for most companies, and they want to have a lot of faith in the company that they are trusting their email with, right? So we have compliance issues to take care of. We recently built a lot of export features for people to be able to export their data in very plain understandable formats, so that they can use it even if our company goes down. There's a lot to be done, in terms of
That's all we have time for, actually.
Okay.
Sorry, but you guys will be around for networking after?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Thanks very much for coming.